I'm Austin Hughes. I own Thunder Sun Homes. We do all kinds of deals across Lubbock. Today, we're going to be talking about how to analyze deals. This isn't just going to be a beginner focus. How do you know if a property is going to make money or not? We'll talk about that, but we're also going to go into just some concepts of how you can scale your company, keeping this in mind as you analyze deals. What type of deals do you need to be doing so you can scale to the level that you want to get to? We're going to do a live deal analysis. We'll go over at least one deal and just kind of go through the things that we're going to be talking about, show you how it works, then talk about scaling with deal analysis. So let's get started on the basics. This is how most people analyze deals. Not saying it's wrong. This is just the most common if you've Googled, how do you analyze a real estate investment? Most people look at the ARV, multiply that by 75%, subtract out your repairs, and that's your max allowable offer. This is kind of the golden standard for real estate investments. And if you're a wholesaler, you just take this of what your buyer's gonna analyze it as, subtract out your wholesale fee, and that's your price. So you're gonna buy it a little bit deeper of a discount. Now your buyer may pay 90% of ARV. You just subtract it from wherever your buyer will be at. But this is kind of the gold standard when it comes to analyzing deals. For everyone in the room though, your investment strategy could be different. You could have different resources. Different things are important to you. Like we were talking about, you're in a lot nicer homes. You don't consider them that nice. They're nice to me, but it's just different sets of criteria. And so your criteria could be based on equity, which, give you a little spoiler, that's part of my criteria. You could just have a set dollar amount saying, I need to make at least $10,000 on each deal, or I need to have at least 10% equity on each deal. So you could have that as your criteria. You could look at cash flow per unit. You could be just a strictly cash flow investor. Nothing else matters, just how much cash flow can I make? Your criteria could be, hey, if I can get into the deal with creative financing, I'll do the deal. That could be your only thing. Pace Morby is probably the biggest guru in the world right now for real estate investing. That's all he cares about. If he can get into a deal with creative financing, figures out the rest. You may have a retirement plan for 10 years, or maybe it's a college fund. You want to pay it off in 10 years. So every deal you look at when you're analyzing these deals, they have to be able to cash flow or break even or meet your criteria on a 10-year amortization on a higher mortgage payment. Maybe you're a realtor, you just say, hey, look, I'm just trying to get more commissions for myself. So as long as I can make at least $5,000 on a deal and I'll get commissions when I buy, I'll get commissions when I sell, I'm happy. There's all kinds of different approaches. That's why I said the 75% rule. It's the kind of the gold standard, but it's not for everybody. It's not how everyone needs to do deal analysis for your situation. If you've got a lender's program that you can qualify with, for example, Alliance Credit Union will do an 80% of ARV loan. If you say, if I can qualify with Alliance, then I'll buy any deal at 80% of ARV minus repairs. You just kind of fit in where the lenders are lending the money, which little secret, that's where 75% comes from. Is because most lenders will lend up to 75% of ARV minus repairs. That's why a lot of investors kind of gravitated towards that, because you can get a deal funded, you can do the deal. Also, you know that there's profit margin in there if you're gonna flip it. Or maybe you want to buy brick houses, $1,000 a month rent or more, good neighborhoods with at least $10,000 in equity. So maybe you work with a builder and everything you look at has to fit this exact criteria, and that's how you're analyzing deals. This would be someone that might be a little further along in their investing career. Maybe they're just starting with a bunch more money. They value time, not having to deal with headaches, over getting a ton of equity and all of the hard work that goes into getting those bigger discounted deals. So it all depends on where you're at. If you're looking to analyze deals, you're looking to get into real estate or looking to continue to grow, if you're already in real estate, it's good to get clarity on this. What is your sweet spot? What kind of deals can you repeatedly do over and over up to the level that you want to scale your business to? It could be 5, 10 properties, 100 properties, doesn't matter. Whatever your criteria is, you need to look at, with the resources I have, how scalable is this? To get us kind of rolling into actually looking at analyzing deals, we'll play a little game. So we're gonna play What's the Profit? So I'm gonna throw some numbers up here, and unless you can just outmaneuver me, we'll see if you can guess the profit. And y'all can do this in your head. You just don't have to be vulnerable like him and possibly say the wrong answer. There's not a right answer, but it's just showing the thought process. All right, so you're buying a deal for 100K. You're gonna sell it for 150K, and the repair estimate that you got from your contractor is $22,500. So the question is, what's the profit?
How much are you taking away for taxes, utilities, and
The smart guy chose to answer this one. So that's basically the correct answer. What a lot of us think is, oh, we're gonna make, let's see, 150 minus that, minus what we paid for it, we're gonna make $27,500. That's what most of us think. And when people get into real estate, you see a deal like this, you're like, hold up, a wholesaler sends it out. They say ARV 150, purchase price 100, 22,500 rehab. You're like, that's a major, I'm about to make $27,500. But there's hidden costs, just like you said.
What if a wholesaler tells us 150? Subtract out how much?
Probably about 10%. These are numbers that I plucked from my deal analysis calculator. If I had just these three numbers, what is this deal gonna make? The actual profit is 10 times less than what we might have thought. 2,700, basically nothing. It's basically break even. If you have to give any kind of concession to the buyer, you're losing money on this deal. So what Stuart said is completely right. He said, what are the costs involved in this? And so we're gonna break down, I'm gonna go through each of these sections, each of these line items, and show you where that extra $25,000 in costs came from on this deal and comes from on every single deal if you have the same formula that I have. So you've got repair costs. That's the first thing that doesn't line up. I thought my contractor said it was $22,500. You got $27,000 over here. We'll talk about that. Closing costs, $5,000. Holding costs, $5,300. And selling costs, $9,100. So you thought your actual cost was $122,500, but your actual total cost was $147,271. So we'll break down into what goes into that. If you're getting into real estate and you're trying to basically get clarity on, is this a good deal? Am I gonna make money? These are the hidden things that you probably missed out on, that once you know these things, you're gonna know just about every cost you could have. If it still looks like a good deal and you factor in all of these costs, you know you have a good deal. So let's look at repair costs. Again, this is my calculator, and this kind of alludes to what we're gonna talk about later, is building in the ability to scale into your numbers. So contractor said it was 22.5, and our numbers are kind of cut off on the right, but 22,500, we put in a 10% buffer. Because even though we get inspections, you open up a wall, it's always the what ifs. You don't know what's gonna come up, or when you go to sell it, even if it was just what you thought, your buyer's gonna nitpick something that is not even real. You have to fix it for them. So we add in a 10% buffer. Now, how we use this to help us scale is we build in a project management cost. And so for my company, what that allows us to do is have someone on our team that we can pay a salary to and pay a bonus whenever they are completing projects like this, and they can oversee that. Now, our ability to do deals, to do 5 deals instead of 1 deal, isn't limited by my time. We build it into our deal analysis so that someone else can handle it. And even if your contractor gives you a solid quote of 22.5, stuff comes up and they don't work for free. So unless they're doing you a huge favor, they won't work for free. So you need to build that in whenever you're buying.
so you specify everything they're going to do in the contract?
Yep, itemized scope of work. Very important. Next, let's look at the closing costs, $5,000. That's $5,000 less profit than you thought you were gonna get. So this is just some closing costs of $1,000, $250 for an inspection, and then your lender's points. And this one I had 3 points. That's, if you go to a hard money lender, you're probably gonna pay 2 to 3 points. So all of these things are typically paid at closing, cash out of pocket. And so that's $5,000 right there that you didn't think about. If you are your own lender, you just pay cash, true cash for everything, then you don't have that cost down at the bottom. So like I said, this is based on my model. Holding costs, it's cut off, but my calculator tells me that based on this project, based on the rehab budget and the sales price, it'll probably take 4 months start to finish. And so you're gonna be paying mortgage payments, insurance, potentially utilities, and property taxes. Even if you're not actually paying the property taxes, when you go to sell it, you'll have to pay them off for however many months that you had it. And so you're doing all of that times 4 months. And so holding costs, that's what that is.
How do you calculate the holding time for the repair cost?
So holding, that's automatically calculated for me on holding time. And so I think we do, yeah, now it's dependent on, for me, we had to get a track record going. And then it got more down to kind of something that we could build into here. But I think it's for every $10,000 that's in our repair budget, it'll be 2 weeks, something like that. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but it's basically the calculator takes, all right, what's our budget, and assigns a number of weeks to that, and that turns into that. Also, the more expensive the ARV, the longer it's gonna take to sell it typically. And so we add that in. So like if this property's ARV was 300K, the holding time might be 6 or 7 months. So yeah, it's a variable based off that. And your last hidden cost, selling costs. Who could tell me what is one thing that goes into the selling costs? Realtors. That's the biggest one. 7,500 commission, that's 5%. You've got some closing costs on the backside of it, warranty, and then another re-inspection. And you could have miscellaneous. See, this is just a deal analysis when you're buying it. You don't know who you're actually going to sell the property to. You don't know who the end buyer is going to be. You may have to give them concessions, closing cost help, extra repairs. That's what would go in miscellaneous. All of these things go into each of these line items. You saw as I back up, each of them had multiple line items that goes into these different type of costs. I'm going to kind of walk y'all through how to build your own calculator, and you're going to refer back to some of this stuff. This will all be in there. You can see the numbers and start to have your own deal analysis calculator like this. So again, just kind of recapping, that $27,000 gross profit that you thought you were going to make on that turned into a very small number. And these hidden costs are only hidden until you find out about them for the first time. Then after that, they're not hidden. You can bake it into your numbers, and every single deal you analyze can include these numbers in there. So they don't have to be hidden costs anymore. When you don't know, you don't know.
If you ever made a mistake with something like that and you realize there was too much into it, you just flip it to a long-term rental to cover that cost.
Like a repair goes too high, repair costs?
Yeah, you find stuff that's gone over budget per se.
Absolutely. Yeah. The way I look at it is I try to take the emotion out of it and analyze it. Today, what is the best use of this property? Even if we thought it was going to be a great XYZ. And that's probably one of the harder things to do as an investor, because I'm not emotionally tied to very many properties. And even so, even with me being not emotional about them, still it's hard for me to, this one didn't go according to plan, probably just need to get rid of it. Or we need to keep this one type of thing. It happens. All right, so we're gonna go through a live deal analysis. If anyone has a deal they'd like to go over.
There's one on 48th Street, 38th Street that's been on the market for 80 days, like 130 something. Like around the slide.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact number.
Slide in 38th.
It might still be available.
You want to pull up the info on it? So what we're going to need to go through a deal is the purchase price, which we'll just start with their asking price and work from there. Square footage. And then to find the ARV, it's the price per square foot. We can also look at market rent. That's pretty much all we need to analyze the deal here. Let me see if he was going to, were you going to pull that one up, Stuart? You got one ready right now?
Yeah, I'm on a contract.
Okay, let's look at it. We'll catch yours in a second, Stuart. All right, purchase price.
What I plan to assign it for?
Yeah, you can put like what you'll sell it to an investor
60.
for. All right, and then square footage, and then price per square foot. By the way, guys, so this is my calculator. So we talk about having your own criteria and your own calculator. You might be a realtor. You might be using your own cash. That is $15,000, $20,000 in savings over what I pay. Maybe you don't have a project manager. You're a DIYer. That's another $3,000. Maybe you not only project manage, but you actually do the construction yourself. That's a lot of savings. And so this is how my deal analysis is going to interpret these deals, but yours could be different. What's not a good deal for me could be a great deal for someone else. You got those numbers?
Yeah, so the square footage is 1283.
Okay.
Price per square foot, 105.
Okay.
Market rent, that's a great question. I just give someone an address, maybe they can look it up.
Do you think it's going to be a flip?
Probably so.
Probably be a flip.
Yeah, it's a 3-1.
3-1. What area of town?
Okay, so the address is 1612 68th Street.
We'll say $1,000. We'll just throw that in there. Okay, let's look at this deal real quick. See what it spits out. By the way, all this other stuff. Oh, I didn't ask you repairs. Do you think it needs just touch-ups and it's good to go, cosmetic, or full gut job?
Probably somewhere below a full gut. So I got 41,000. That's the
Okay. Sweet, we can type that in. Close enough. So we'll go 40,415. So like we looked at earlier on my calculator, we've got a 10% buffer and we got project management costs. So if I'm looking at this deal, I'm going to be looking at about 49,000 in repair costs on this one. And the bigger the project, usually the more hidden stuff that always pops up. These are my financing terms. This is just one of the lenders we're working with, 7.3%, 30-year amortization, 3 points, kind of standard. And then if you go to sell, 5% commission. You keep it as a rental, 8% property management. So let's see what this spits out on the calculator. So you've got a flip analysis that we look at and a rental analysis, which by the way, it's getting harder and harder to make stuff work as rentals with financing 100% of the deal just because of interest rates. And so mine shows negative cash flow of 300. Negative cash flow of 300, flip profit of 5,400. So if I'm looking at this one, I'm going to say, okay, what can we do to make this deal work as a flip? Because it's closer. It's really close to being a good deal with my calculator as a flip. But on the rental, it'd probably take a lot of movement just to make it a good rental. So that's probably how I would analyze this. Now, let's say I was someone that used my own cash, no lender's points, 0.1% interest. Let's say I'm a realtor. So I'm only going to have to pay 3% commission. And let's just look at those two changes. So with those two changes, all of a sudden this one makes a $14,000 profit as a flip. So just those two things, using your own cash, being a realtor, saving a little bit of realtor's fees. This deal that wasn't good turns into a profitable deal. And obviously it's going to cash flow because you're using your own cash. My calculator still calculates a mortgage payment just because I don't use my own cash to buy stuff. So we always factor in for a mortgage. But changing those few variables turns something that was kind of marginal into something that has potential for us as a flip. All right, you want us to look at that deal that's been listed forever? Okay, thank you.
In the pictures, I don't know how much repairs, but
1564 square feet, 4811. What do you think the ARV on this is? 115. You probably know. Stubb Stewart, 115 a square foot.
Yeah.
3-bedroom, 2-bath. Rental. You got any rentals there? Stubb Stewart. This one's at 4811 41st.
I was
12?
15, right?
I'll say 1300. They're asking 130,000. Okay, thanks. We'll work with that. And then, oh, let me look at the rehab. Okay, we got some dated. I'd show it to you, but I don't want to mess everything up. Very dated, but clean looking. Very dated. So you've got wood panel. You've got the little lights with the flower glass, the fans with the flower glass. You got a lime green bedroom, old carpet. Looks like, yeah, brown bricks on the inside of the walls. Not in a fashionable way, in like a... And then you've got the classic wooden countertops. So that one would at least need cosmetic repairs if we were looking at a flip. So I'm gonna put a 1 here. Oh, let me give y'all a little bit of insight on this. So my calculator, whenever I put this is how we do just a quick analysis. Whenever we're really serious about a property, we'll break down the rehab line by line. But just for a quick analysis, we'll put a 1, whether it is minor touch-ups, super cheap, $5 a square foot. Cosmetic updates, that's just the lipstick and countertops basically, which is $15 a square foot. And then a full gut job, most full remodels are gonna fall somewhere between these two. Cosmetic is $15 a square foot. Full gut job is $45 a square foot. And that's like everything, except for rebuilding a house. If I could build brand new houses for 45 a square foot, we'd be building as many as possible. So this one would probably be in cosmetics, maybe a little more, but we'll go with that. So as you're building your calculators, especially if you're just a wholesaler and you wanna kind of just get a rough number, if it's going to be a rental and just need barely any touch-ups, $5 a square foot. Cosmetic flip, $15 a square foot. And gut job, you're going to need some estimates on a gut job, but we put 45 just for a super quick analysis. Any guesses on this deal on if it's going to be profitable or not? It's on the MLS for 80 days. Let's see. So $3,000 loss. Negative cash flow, doesn't look like a great deal. So one of the benefits to building a deal analysis calculator is you don't stop here. You look at, if this is a motivated seller, what can I do to make this into a profitable deal? So what would y'all recommend doing on this? So let's just say we're paying a realtor and let's say we're gonna borrow money from somewhere. What could you change on this deal to maybe make it profitable?
10 grand discount.
10 grand discount. All right, $120,000. Okay, let me do one at a time. With a 10 grand discount, all of a sudden it does become profitable on paper based on our quick analysis. I wouldn't be comfortable with a deal that slim, but you know, it's at least in the right direction. Yes, I do have 0 for a down payment. So what do you think I should put there? 20%? What's that gonna do to our profit? I am guessing it's going to increase our profits very, very slightly because we'll be paying slightly less interest. So here we go, 20% down payment. Profit went from $7,600 to $8,600. So it went up $1,000 based on putting 20% down, AKA, what is that, 25,000? So pay 25,000 to make an extra 1,000 on a deal. Now what that does do is it makes our loan to value a lot lower because the loan you're getting is now only 80% instead of 100%. But when you're looking at actual profitability, it's not gonna make a deal that much more profitable to put a big down payment down. My advice to most people is if you have to put a down payment down just to make something a good deal, it's not a good deal. That's just how I look at it. So we'll go back to 0 down payment and let's see what it looks like at 110,000. You're at 77% loan to value, but your profit is 18,000. Now, if you're looking to get a deal 100% financed by a lender, then this doesn't quite meet your criteria. So you're gonna need it a little bit cheaper. Let's look at 105. That should be in the range. This to me looks like a deal that I would do. Well, close. We're buying a little bit more discounted right now, but you got a $23,000 real projected profit because you're already counting out all the repair costs, closing costs, holding and selling costs, and you're at 74% loan to value. So you should, if you get a good evaluation with the right lender, you should be able to finance this deal with a hard money lender and do the deal. So earlier when I talked about find your criteria, that's what I'm talking about. Look at your plan of attack, your business model, how you're gonna fund it, and does this deal fit within your parameters? So that's how I like to approach deal analysis, is enter everything in, don't have any biases, just the numbers are what they are, and then look at if the purchase price doesn't work, what price would work? That's the simplest, quickest way to make a deal work. Now you could try and save a penny here, a penny there on the rehab side and pull some of these different levers that are gonna affect it, but the easiest, I think the best way when you're buying a deal is just look at the price. So if you're trying to get your first deal and you see a deal that doesn't look good, find out what price it looks good at. Don't just say this isn't a good deal. This isn't a good deal at the price they're asking. You'll find out what price it's a good deal at for you. That's my advice.
What if you want this as a rental?
If you want it as a rental, based on today's rates, you'll probably lose $338 a month. Unless, let's go on the rental side. Let me break this down. You've got the rental income. Everything else below it is a subtraction. Everything else below it is an expense. So you got your mortgage payment, taxes and insurance. All three of these are optional. Maintenance shouldn't be optional, but technically it's optional. So you got vacancy reserve, maintenance, and a property management fee. So those three equal $338, which is funny. It's the exact deficit on cash flow. So if you believe you can keep it, if you can get it rented day one, that it's in perfect shape and you're not gonna have to do any maintenance, that your tenant isn't gonna mess it up, you do property management yourself, this one will be a break-even deal. Break-even is not necessarily bad. Again, it depends on your criteria. I have certain criteria for mine, but there are investors I know that their criteria is, I want to leverage my dollar as far as I can, get as much of an asset value as I can, and then every year I'm gonna get some tax savings and I'm gonna get to benefit from appreciation. So if the market appreciates 5% a year, if I have a small amount of properties, I'll get a small amount of appreciation. If I have a large asset base, then that number is still gonna just be 5%, but 5% of $1 million is what, 50,000? 5% of 10 million is 500,000, just appreciation yearly. Some people, if it breaks even and they have to self-manage and do everything themselves, they're in on it. But again, that goes to the conversation of scalability. You need to be analyzing the deals based on your goals. If your goal is to scale, I would recommend putting some kind of property management fee in there, even if you're gonna self-manage at first. Just my advice, you don't have to do it. Now, if your goal is to get just a small handful of houses and you think you can handle it, then you don't need to include that. You can have higher cash flow than anyone else can. You can do deals where it's marginal for me, it's a good deal for you, and you can have that competitive edge. It all depends on your approach. Real quick, I'll just go into, I know y'all might have questions on how much each of these are. Taxes and insurance, you can get a quote and get those real numbers. Like you can figure out before you buy it what it's actually gonna cost for each of those. Vacancy reserve, right now Lubbock is somewhere between 8 and 10%, is that right?
I'm not sure right now.
Okay. I'm gonna say 8 to 10%. So that's what we budget for. Maintenance, we budget for 10% of the rents. So as you notice, $1,300 rent, $130 maintenance reserve. And then property management, we put 8%. That's what goes into each of those numbers. All right, now we'll get to the final part, talk about scaling. This is my Amish Mafia friend. He likes to show up in our presentations. So he has definitely scaled some kind of business in his lifetime. I don't know. He is Amish, so maybe he has some kind of principles. I don't know. Maybe not. So this is the question that kind of sparked this topic is people say, Austin, how do you analyze deals so you can scale your portfolio? And again, that's just based on my goals is how I'm analyzing the deals. But if you also want to scale a portfolio, then I'm gonna actually share our secret formula today. So Plankton never thought it would be revealed, but Today you're getting the Krabby Patty formula. Disclaimer, you might be disappointed, but I'm gonna tell y'all exactly how we look at deals. So my criteria for flips, we buy at 75% of ARV, which we've adjusted it right now to buy at 70% just because of the market and feedback from lenders. So now we're at 70%, normally 75. So we get a deal, we look at 75% of ARV, we subtract out repairs, that's our max allowable offer. I don't like variable rates. Right. That's a real possibility. So yes, I do like fixed rate mortgages. So if you can lock in a 20-year fix or a 30-year fix, you at least know what that's going to cost you. Property taxes and insurance may change, but you at least know what your mortgage payment's going to be. So that's important. Was there any other aspect of that you wanted me to touch on?
The portfolio, like I'm the exact opposite.
Right.
I'm curious of exact opposite.
Right.
I believe honestly that I heard that 20% and I probably do lost into it. I got my skin into it, coming up with 20%. I'm making sure I buy 100, 160, from like 20 cents. Remodel costs is in out of pocket. I feel it's not following that remodel money.
That is probably 100% true.
It's hard. 10 prices is not high. And then at the end of the day, you don't burn. You know, year later, the remodel.
Right.
My remodel money comes out. I can see it though. Like if it in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I can wait to the end of the day. I'll get all my money back out. So I'm 100% funded it. But I have options.
Yes. So I would describe your model as you value not having a time pressure more than maxing out how much money you have, how far that goes. So you're optimizing for more peace of mind, more of no one's really on my back. I don't have to get this done ultra quick. I can wait. And yeah, human nature, if you're spending your own money on a rehab, you're probably gonna really be looking at that versus, oh, I got a rehab loan, it's covered. They gave me a quote, let's go. So that is very true. Possibly the same thing could apply to not having the time pressure. If you don't have the time pressure, we can get to that one in 6 months. That type of thing is easier to fall into as well. So yeah, it's part of the give and take. And so hopefully I'll come back to that in just a second when we talk about your models. But yeah, it's a great example. And there's no one right way to do it. There's different levers that you pull on that bring you different outcomes. My theory behind this is if I have to pay money to have equity in a property, if my equity is my down payment, I might need to get a deeper discount. That's how I look at it. Now, you can buy at a discount and put a down payment and have even more margins in there. So that works as well. Let me go a little bit deeper on this topic of my business model. Every single deal has to be fully funded. So if you had $1 million when you started investing, somehow you got $1 million, you said, I'm gonna parlay this into real estate, and you went to a banker, you said, I got $1 million, how much real estate can I buy? What do you think they would tell you? How much real estate can $1 million buy you? Nailed it. $1 million can buy you $5 million of real estate if you follow the traditional model. Because you got the money, money's not a constraint. I'll put my 20% down and the bank will fund 80% of it. 20% of 5 million is 1 million. Once you hit that point, you are done scaling based on your business model. That's the point where you are done. Hopefully you've hit your goals by that time. Hopefully 5 million was your goal. Because if it wasn't your goal and you wanted to go further, that business model is not going to get you there. And so when I say every single deal has to be fully funded, it all depends on how far you want to scale. It depends on what resources do you have and how far do you want those resources to get you to. And for me, I developed my business model off of not having $1 million when I started. I had $1,000 when I started. But having $1,000 has allowed me to scale way beyond this point because of my criteria. Because my criteria is replicatable. I can multiply it. I can do it across multiple properties and it still works. The structure and model still works at any scale. That's where that comes from. And if you think someone starting out with $1 million has a huge advantage, it's kind of like Bob was talking about, when you're spending your own money, then you're really looking at it. Well, kind of the opposite here. They've got $1 million. They got all this money. They don't have to, oh, I got to put some money into this deal. I got to put a down payment on here. They've got so much that it doesn't really matter. But your money will always run out at some point if you're putting a bunch of money into every deal. It just depends on where will it run out. Will it run out on the first deal, the 10th deal, the 50th deal? But again, that comes back to your goals. Now, my secret formula for rentals, exact same thing. So buy at a 25 to 30% discount, or I have another way for rentals, creative financing with 100% financing. So if someone is trying to sell me a property that's worth 100K and they're trying to sell it for 90, that's 90%. If it doesn't need repairs, and if they have a really cheap mortgage that I can take over and I don't have to bring any money to the table, I'll consider it, but it has to cash flow. For me, it has to cash flow with all those numbers, with setting money aside for vacancy, maintenance, property management, and the mortgage, cash flow at least $50 a month. I like it to be more, but that's just for me. So if it hits both of those criteria, then we'll buy it. It's a rental.
Creative financing wise, what do you generally propose to someone? Let's say they have a 3% mortgage. What would you propose on top of that?
So if they have equity, but for some reason we can't negotiate them to a price where we can just buy it outright, then you could take over their mortgage and then add a second position lien with them. So that way you're not having to put a down payment to make up the difference between the sales price and what they owe. It all depends on the deal. So I'd work backwards to get to that at least $50 a month. I'd probably shoot for $100 a month. So if it's $1,000 rent and I've got $500 with which to play around with the mortgage and they're paying $400 a month, then I might offer them $80 a month and work up to 100 as the max. So you just kind of work backwards from your cash flow number. That's how I do it.
In order to get it fully funded, did you assign the property to yourself in order to pay for the down payment as well as the closing costs and the holding fees?
I have done that. I do that a lot of the times. What Josh was talking about is you can assign the property from your wholesale entity into your holding company, make an assignment fee, and if your lender does require you to bring money to the table, you can use that assignment fee to pay for that money. So all these strategies only work if you have good equity in the deal. It's a really good deal. If it's marginal, no matter how you slice it up, it's not going to work.
So your $50 a month cash flow, does that depend on, is that any deal, or does it depend on
pretty much any deal? Yep.
Matter if it's worth $500,000.
Yeah, if it still cash flows. Now, if it's worth $500,000, it's probably going to have multiple units, and so it would be $50 per unit. That's what I would look at. But that calculator I pulled up, I look at flip and rental side by side on every deal, and so that's another tip. As you build your calculator, build it to your goals. If you just want to buy rentals, don't even look at the flip profit in there, because you'll be tempted to sell the property. Just look at your cash flow. But I look at all deals side by side. What if I flipped it? What if it was a rental? So I told y'all might be disappointed, because my secret formula that everyone wants to know, how does this person buy, all these properties and build this portfolio? It's not really a secret. It's the golden standard that we all learn, probably one of the first things you learned in real estate. It's just having the discipline to apply it. That's the whole secret. That formula is a scalable formula. Now, you may have other resources that are scalable with a different way of analyzing deals, but for me, it's simple. So some people may be disappointed because you wanted a complex answer. Like, okay, man, I hope ThunderSun Homes just has a really crazy, super smart way that no one knows about of doing this, and that's how they scaled. And when you find out that it's not, it's simple, it's just this. It's the same thing everyone has access to. You just have to put in the work and be consistent with it. And my biggest thing isn't the consistency. My struggle is having the discipline to stick to it. I want to do deals that are outside of this criteria. That's always what slows us down. And that's my biggest struggle with this. So that's all it is. It's not a big secret. It's just finding your criteria and putting it on paper and seeing that it's scalable with your resources. You've got a few $100,000 and you just want to turn 5 to 10 properties a year, and you want to burr them out, and you want to have, pull your equity out then, and you can float that at all times. Perfect. That is scalable for you. That is a great business model. So that's what you need to think about. So again, to build your own calculator, you got to look at what is your criteria. This is all the same things that we talked about earlier. So figure out your criteria, build your criteria into a calculator, use that calculator every single time you analyze a deal. That is the biggest thing. It's all about repetition. I've got a buddy in Nebraska, and he owns some rentals, and he keeps selling them, and he's making good money. He's like, man, I keep selling my rentals, because I see how much money I could get if I sold them. And then I compare that to how much cash flow I'll make this year, and it just blows it out of the water. And I can't stop selling my rentals, but I don't want to. He's like, I want to build a portfolio, but I keep selling them. And I said, well, what do you analyze when you sell them? Like, well, I look at my cash flow for the year versus how much profit I can make if I sell it. I said, well, what if you, instead of looking at that, looked at the potential appreciation, potential tax savings, the potential cash flow, and the debt pay down over the next 10 years and measured that against what you could make selling it? You think you would keep more? He was like, oh wow, yeah, I'd probably never sell one. The lesson is that based on your criteria, build your calculator so that you can do the deals that you actually want to do. And you're not just left doing deals that who knows if it's good for your business model. So I'm gonna teach y'all how to fish with this. I'm not gonna send out my calculator because that would be giving you a fish. But you want to know what goes into it. You wanna be able to have those conversations and really know the ins and outs. So again, I'm gonna share this. So I'll just quickly go through how to build a calculator. So take a breakdown of the costs that we went through earlier. It'll be in this presentation. Open up a spreadsheet, start with the purchase price, the sales price, the repair costs, and your total profit. Start there. From there, add in selling, holding, and buying costs. And the formula is sales price minus all of those other costs equal your profit. Start there. That doesn't take long. It's very simple. It'll be very simple to build, and you can build up your calculator from there to where it gets nicer and easier to read and things like that. But start with simple. And for rentals, you'll add top line rent, and you'll subtract out these expenses: vacancy, maintenance, taxes, insurance, utilities, property management, and your mortgage payment. The rent minus all those expenses will be your cash flow. That's a really simple calculator to build out. Now you may be thinking, a lot of people have this brain of, well, what goes here? What goes there? What goes here? I'm telling you, just add these line items, just make these lines. And then from there, you can add all of the criteria of, okay, well, what goes into taxes? What goes into property management? You build it out, but just build the structure first. And here's what this will do for you, is what it did for me. I got a very deep understanding of how each variable played with each other. So when we looked at what happens when we do a higher down payment, does that increase our profitability? I knew that it wasn't going to increase our profitability, but a very small amount. And so knowing how everything is interrelated is extremely valuable. You start to know how to do deals better. You see a deal, I can change this thing, I can move this, and all of a sudden a bad deal will be a good deal. I think that's all I had for y'all. That's it. So any final questions? It looks like we are a little late today, which I try not to do, but any final questions before we wrap up? Awesome. I'll be here. There's my contact info. Our next one's going to be April 18th. It'll be at noon. What's up?
A little off subject. How do you get your hair with so much quality?
That is my secret formula that I won't share. You can't get all of them. You bet. All right. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks for coming.